you, MC and moderator. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable, the head of Stay Raka, Pak Shauki, and also the organizing committee of this first National Conference on English Education, or NCED. Thank you for having me in this very great occasion, and I'm really sorry that I actually wanted to join this session a bit earlier, but I tried to get a good connection, but I failed to get a good connection, so yeah, I joined the session a little bit late. Anyway, thank you for introducing me. That's a lovely introduction, and allow me to share my screen. Host disabled participants screen sharing. Can I share my screen, Bapak? I'm afraid the host disabled the screen sharing. Bapak moderator, or can someone help me with the screen sharing, because participant is disabled to share the screen.
Please try this, sir.
Yeah, I'm afraid that it's still host disabled participant screen sharing. There is a notice on my screen.
Yeah, enabled, sir. So,
Okay, yeah, it's on now. Okay. Yep. There you go. Okay, I think it's almost there. Yeah. Okay, Bapak Ibu, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes. All right. So yeah, this is the topic that I'm going to talk about today. It might not be a new topic for us, but I just want to make sure that we refresh our memory on one of our top duties, that is assessing our students. The thing is, I found from my previous studies that the majority of my students fail to understand the concept of assessment itself. So before I start my presentation, I'm going to give you something later, like a survey, to check our understanding about the concept of assessment itself. But I'm really sure that everyone who joined this session is already an expert in the assessment. But yeah, again, I really want to make sure that we share the same understanding about the assessment itself. Okay, Bapak Ibu, I'm going to share something. Hold on. I'm going to share this link into your chat room, Zoom chat room. Okay, now what I want you to do is to write something in 2 words. What comes to your mind when you hear the word assessment? So we just start this presentation with this kind of survey game. So in 2 words, what comes to your mind when you hear assessment? Kindly go to your Zoom chat room and then click the link and then write something in 2 words. What comes to your mind when you hear the word assessment? Okay, I'm waiting for your responses. Yes, okay, some responses are coming. A priority, checking understanding, getting score, judging someone's work. Some more? I see like 65 or 64 participants in this study. In this room. So yeah, we are looking for some more responses. Testing, getting score. Some more? Can we have some more, please? Okay, getting score, checking understanding, judging someone's work. Some more? Achievement, exam. Okay, well, I'm waiting for like 2 more responses because we have like 64, then yeah, we can checking effectivity, getting score value. Okay, thank you. So yeah, well, I can see that the majority of us, I mean, have a very great understanding. I mean, the majority, all of you have got great understanding on what assessment itself. What about my next question? Okay. Please go to the same link. Please go to the same, link, and then try to write what assessment-related activities do teachers normally do, because we are going to talk about our job as assessor later. I mean, as teachers in relation to assessment. What assessment-related activities do teachers normally do? Go back to your Zoom chat room and then have a look at them. Okay, having an exam, quizzes. Great. Questioning, okay. Good. Review measure. Great. Exam and quiz. Quizzes, multiple choice. I got 7 out of 67. Quizzes, review measure. Okay, giving exam and quizzes again. Some more coming. Essays. Okay, some more. We got 11. Let's wait until we get 15 or 15. Some more available. Waiting for another floor. Okay, quizzes. Giving exam. 2 more. Presentation. Yes, I'm looking forward to having like great participation from all the attendants of this seminar. Okay, I think we have to. Yeah, I'll go back to my screen then. Okay, Bapak Ibu, if we go back to the question, then you can find that teachers, when we are talking about assessment, teacher's job is not only to assess, right? So you can find from the other audience ideas that our job as a teacher is not simply to get scores, it's not simply to get grade, but we can also do other things. And this is what we are going to talk about today. So if we have a look at, if we have a kind of reflection on our past time, you may find that there might be something wrong. There was something wrong with our way of assessing our students. What happens here is, like in the olden days, ketika Bapak Ibu mungkin masih mengenal istilah UN, we had this kind of situation, right? Alright, Bapak Ibu, alright Mas dan Mbak, as the only measurement, or we are going to use EPNAS or UN as the only measure for you to pass your SMP or SMA. This was what happens to us, right? Okay, but the question is, do you think it is really a fair way of assessing our students? Like you are asking everyone in your classroom to do exactly the same assessment. You are asking people or students with diverse skills, diverse performance, diverse cognitive skills, affective skills to do exactly the same thing. So there might be something wrong here, right? Ideally, you cannot ask an elephant to climb a tree. You cannot ask a penguin to climb a tree. You cannot ask a fish, even a fish, to climb a tree. So this is what happens with our the history of assessment in our country. Okay. So I'm not going to move on to the common misconceptions about assessment that normally happens in our ELT setting. So there are some misconceptions that I'm pretty sure that there are many, or some English teachers in Indonesia also bump into this. So the first misconception is about assessment and testing are the same thing. From my study, my last study, I found that many pre-service teachers consider that assessment and testing are the same one. If you want to assess your students, the only thing that you need to do is to use like a multiple choice test, and then you get the grade, and that's it. That's your job. So your job is to design the RPP and then teach and then assess your students. How do you assess your students? Give them a multiple choice test, score them, and that's it. That's what some of the pre-service teachers that I investigated in my study. So they responded this way. They responded this way. They considered assessment and testing are exactly the same thing. And I do believe that everyone in this conference agrees that they are two different things. Assessment and testing are not the same. But what the second misconception? Most assessment is summative. Yeah, again and again, when we ask, in my last study, I asked many teachers, many pre-service teachers, and their answer is, when I asked them this question, how do you assess your students? And most of them answered, but we gave them a test by the end of the semester. That was their most common answer. Okay, I was like prihatin because then you don't know. You don't know your roles as teachers. You are not testers. You are teachers. You are assessors. Then what is our job as an assessor? We are going to have a look at them later. And then the next one, assessment is one-way communication. I do believe that we do agree that it is not a correct concept. So when we are talking about assessment, it is not a one-way communication. It is even a two-way communication. We assess our students and then we give them feedback, and then they may want to ask what happens, what's wrong with me, how can I improve my performance? And then we provide them the answers. We help them to improve their performance. So this is what we are going to do. Okay? And then the next one, assessment for grading purposes only. This is really like something ridiculous that some pre-service teachers in my study responded that, Pak, kalau kita nilai ya dapat skor, setelah itu selesai. This is not an ideal concept. Okay? Grade is just an indicator. We may have some other indicators in our assessment. And then student work should be given a grade or mark. Yes, but no. So some of this statement is okay, but some others there are also some downside from this statement. And I do believe that none of you has got these misconceptions, right? I do hope so. Alright, now I'll come to the next slide. So, basically when we are talking about assessment itself in EFL setting, there are three common types of assessment in EFL setting. The first one is assessment for learning itself. And then the second one is assessment of learning. And then the third one is assessment as learning. Many studies shows that teachers believe that assessment is only this assessment of learning. We come to the class, we assess our students, boom, we got the score, that's it. Okay? When we dig deeper into the concept of assessment of learning is only a part of assessment itself. Because it just gives us ideas about the student's performance or the student's scores. What about other type of assessment? If we go to assessment as learning itself, assessment of learning occurs when students reflect on and monitor their progresses to inform their future learning goals. So from their own performance, the students then can learn, okay, if the target is 100 and my level is 70, I still need to go for another 30. I have to struggle for another 30 then. So then this is assessment as learning. What about assessment for learning? A concept that we are going to talk about more in this very lovely occasion. Assessment of learning is basically an effort that occurs when teachers use inferences about students' progress to inform their teaching. So basically, when we are talking about assessment for learning, we are talking about the purpose of assessment for students and also the purpose of statement for teachers. What does that mean? So when we are talking about the purpose of assessment for students, then yes, we help them to assess their position. We help them to assess their level. What about for teachers? We help ourselves. We help teachers. We help ourselves to identify. Ngajar saya itu sudah sampai mana bagusnya? Apakah saya sudah benar bisa mengajari ini to my students or not? So this is the function of assessment for learning. But we are going to dig deeper into the concept of assessment of learning in the next slide. So when we are talking about assessment for learning, this is the definition from Black et al. So basically, when we are talking about assessment for learning, the main objective or purpose of assessment for learning is to promote the learning of our learners or students. So this is our main job, right? Promoting learning process. We are trying to help our students to promote their learning process. And it's pretty different from simply designing and using assessment or tests to collect information, getting ranking, and certifying competence. It's pretty different from some standardized tests like TOEFL, IELTS, and other standardized tests who simply collect the score and that's it. No. When we are talking about assessment for learning, our objective, our purpose, our main job is to help students promote their learning. Okay, that's why. How do we do that? We do it this way. Okay, we provide information to be used as feedback. Okay, not only by the teachers but also by the students. So we can see that here in assessment of learning, for learning, we involve teachers, the student themselves, and their peers. These are the three components in assessment for learning that we cannot neglect. So we have to consider involving our students, involving our their peers to assess themselves, to assess their performance. All right. Now let me move on to let's have a look at some benefits of assessment for learning itself. If we have a look at some benefits of assessment for learning, the first point is that EFL or assessment for learning improves learner outcomes. How do we do this? Of course, we can do this by providing our students with feedback. Your level is now 75, you need to go for another 25 to get 100. How do you do that? You go this, you do this, you read this one, you work with your friends, you communicate with your friends, you ask your friends to monitor your progress, and so on. So assessment for learning improves learner outcomes. The second one, assessment for learning increases confidence. So when we are talking about assessment for learning in improving learners' confidence, yes, by providing feedback to our learners, like, okay, Mas dan Mbak, you need to learn this one. You are pretty good. You are really great at doing this, but you need to do this. You need to improve this point. You need to improve your expressions of your way of expressing your ideas in your writing, for instance. So by providing this kind of feedback, by asking them to work with their peers to get some feedback from their peers, then we are promoting or increasing our students' confidence. And by doing this, by the end of the day, you are going to see that, okay, your students improve a lot in their performance because they feel confidence, they can do something. Bapak Ibu, kalau kita memberi sesuatu yang tidak bisa dilakukan oleh siswa atau mahasiswa kita, they will feel sad. But if you tell them to do something and they can do that perfectly, they will be really, really happy. And and they will feel confidence. And by the end of the day, when they feel confidence, they will can do anything. Okay, so this is our job. The next one, AFL increases independence. Yes, by providing our students the opportunity to work with their friends, to work with their colleagues, to provide feedback to each other, then they will grow their independence. Okay, they will feel confidence and they will grow their independence later. Okay, and then the next one, AFL changes the culture of the classroom. Remember in the olden days, saya masih ingat dulu guru saya itu kalau datang ke kelas, he simply gave me LKS. So I normally call it LKS based teaching, a very easy way that my teachers in the olden day did. They simply gave me LKS and then, Noor, you answer number 1, Harry, you answer number 2. Okay, everyone, what is your score? I'm going to input them into my database. That's it. But AFL changes this culture. We are not going to use tests only to assess our students. We are going to see how we can get these benefits. But the common reasons why we need to do assessment for learning are on this slide. We can actually get some other benefits from assessment for learning, but some reasons why we need to do assessment for learning is this one on this side, some of them. Okay, and among this need of assessment for learning, you will find that this is not only to get score or grade. So start from now. Please remember, we promised ourselves that we are not going to simply get grades from our students and that's it. No. Okay, out of these purposes or the need of assessment for learning, you find no scores here. Right? Mungkin yang ini saja atau yang ini saja. But our job here is to help our students. For instance, to identify areas where improvement is needed by our students. They might be great at 10 KD, but they might be weak at 2 other KD, so our job is to help them. By giving them this kind of assessment, we are helping them. Okay, Mas and I'm going to help you with the rest 2 KDs later. Okay, so why do we do this assessment for learning? And then on the next slide, I'm going to cover how actually assessment for learning strategies improve learner outcomes. Bapak Ibu, please let us remember that, I'm not going to say please remember, but let us remember because I'm also asking myself to do the same thing. So assessment for learning is not a linear process. Okay? Tidak hanya linear seperti ini saja, but it's cyclical. Okay, so if someone asks you, where is the ending? Where is the end of assessment for learning process? There is no end of assessment for learning. Because, for instance, we have this one. We are measuring our students' performance. They are supposed to get 100, but they only get 75, for instance. Now, from these scores or from these grades, then we tell our students, all right, Mas Anda, you are here. Okay, you are now 75. You need to run for another 25 to get 100. I'm going to accompany you. I'm going to help you. I'm going to assist you to get there. Because you're going to be here. Right? And I'm going to help you how to get there. I'm going to provide you with assistance. I'm going to show you your weaknesses. I'm going to show you your strengths, some parts that you need to improve to get the best or to perform the best throughout your study or throughout your learning process. Okay, what about the process in assessment for learning itself? Well, I take this note from Cambridge Assessment International Standard, and I find these 5 main processes that normally take place in assessment for learning. The question is this one. We need to ask our students some questions. Where are you now? Okay, we do have in kuliah misalnya ya, we do have 10 CPL, 10 PLO or capaian pembelajaran or program learning outcome. My question is, where are you now? Have you mastered the 10 CPLs? Have you mastered the 10 PLOs, or do you have some other PLs or you are still weak at? So we are asking them these questions first. Okay? What about the next thing to do? The next process is providing feedback. Alright. I'm now already mastering 8 PLOs. Okay, then you need to master another 2 PLOs, another 2 CPLs. CPL ya kan bahasa Indonesia. Another 2 CPLs. Then how do I get there, sir? Okay, you provide feedback. Okay, your weakness from our last assessment, from our last quiz, from my observation is this one, and this one. Okay, I mean, sometimes you are too tergesa-gesa to do your assignment, and then you are sloppy in working in dealing with your grammar and so on. Okay, and then the next one is student understand what successful work looks like. So we need to provide a good model that they need to get or that they need to achieve. Okay, to get 100, this is the level that they need to master. This is an example, a model of the student's work that can get 100, for instance. This is a perfect writing prop that you can not imitate yet, but that you can learn from to get the best to perform better in your writing, for instance. And then the next one, students more independent in their learning, taking part in peer assessment and self-assessment. Yes, this is another keyword in assessment for learning. We are talking about peer assessment and self-assessment. So, Bapak Ibu, from now on, let us remember, again, I'm not saying please remember, but let us remember together that in assessing our students, we also need to involve our students, their peers, to help them grow together, to improve themselves together, so that they can perform better than now. The question is, but sometimes when I ask my students to do peer assessment, they don't even know what they need to do. Tell them. Our job is to help them, to tell them that, okay, what you need to do is this one, and this one. Okay? And the last one is, the last step is this one, summative assessment. Bapak Ibu, I'm not saying that ujian itu jelek. We still need to use summative assessment. Okay? But remember, the summative assessment is not only in the form of tests, but you can also do exam or portfolio. Let's say if you are teaching writing, then it is not only about the final product of your students that you are assessing, but you also need to see their progress. A good progress is from 20 to 70, but 91 to 92 might not be an excellent progress. Okay, so how do we know this progress? We can only know this progress from our students' portfolio. Okay, so Bapak Ibu, if you read some references on principles of assessment for learning, then they may come to a conclusion that there are, let's say, 10 principles of assessment for learning. You can find 9 here, but actually one of them is two points. The last one is sensitive, constructive, and foster motivation. Itu 2 poin. What is explanation? What is the explanation on part of effective planning, focuses on how pupils learn, central to classroom practice, and so on. So if we have a look at the next slide, I'm sorry that it might be too small for you to read, but you can get the slide from the organizing committee so that you can read better. Okay, so we are going to have a look at these 10 points. So the first point is that we have to make sure that AFL, or assessment for learning, is or should be part of an effective planning of teaching and learning. So our assessment for learning itself is a part of our teaching process. It cannot be separated from the teaching process. If the teaching objective is to, if the teaching objective is to help our students to master A, then we have to involve A in our assessment. Okay, it is a part of an effective planning. Without a planned or without a well-planned assessment for learning, we may have great problems in our assessment later. And then the next one is assessment for learning should focus on how students learn. Remember, it's not only about the product, it's also about the process. Assessment is not only about final score, but it's also about the process. The next one, assessment for learning should be recognized as central to classroom practice. Yes, I do believe that all of you already do this in your classroom, and I'll say that 2 thumbs up for all of you who already do this. Next one is that assessment for learning should be regarded as a key professional skills for teachers. Why is it this way? Yes, because a good teacher always tries to improve his or her performance. How can he get the feedback for his or her performance? He or she can get the feedback from her students or his students' performance. By getting his or her students' performance, then we can learn, okay, my students find problems in this part, my students find other problems in this part, and so on. The next point is that assessment for learning should be sensitive and constructive because it has emotional impact. Bapak Ibu, I still remember that my supervisor told me, Nur, I was from, my supervisor's master degree was from Harvard, and her PhD degree was from Columbia, and she worked like 15 years for ETS yang membuat TOEFL itu. And then one day she told me, Nur, US itu hampir tidak ada nilai B plus atau B. Yang ada hanya A dan A minus. And then she asked me, kok bisa kayak gitu, kira-kira kenapa, Nur? And then I answered, because they are generous. And she said, no. Please remember that every single student in your class is special. You have to treat them special. If in one of your courses you give them a C, they may feel really, really sad. Then this sadness will trigger them not to do their best in other courses, and this is a serious problem. Kalau mereka sedih di satu kelas, akhirnya baper di kelas lain juga sedih. Akhirnya ada maksimal. This is what she said. That's why when she became an academic at UNSW, she gave A and A minus to her students, and the faculty was really mad at her and then threatened her. Kalau ngasih A minus saja kamu dikeluarkan dan jadi dosen di sini. And then she changed her behavior. But what I want to say here is that we have to treat our students special, because everyone in our students are special. They might be good at one point, they might not be good in our class, but they might be excellent in other classes. So by giving them a C, itu bisa membuat mereka sedih, patah hati, terluka, patah hati, dan they might not be able to perform better in other courses. That's what is meant by this one. And then the next one, assessment should take into account the importance of learner motivation. Yes, Bapak Ibu, we have to consider what our learners' motivation. By giving them good scores, by giving them good feedback scores, then we will be able to help them to get better motivation in learning. And then the next point is that assessment for learning should promote commitment to learning goals and a shared understanding of criteria by which they are assessed. Please tell our students about the points that they are going to be assessed for. Oke, Mas dan Mbak, yang akan diassess itu adalah your grammar, your vocabulary, your pronunciation, which include accuracy, fluency, and blah 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 blah. Tell them the criteria of assessment. Learners should receive constructive guidance about how to improve. Yes, sepandai-pandainya siswa mungkin tidak lebih pandai dari gurunya. That's why, or dosennya. That's why we have to provide them with constructive guidance about how they can help themselves to improve themselves. Okay, then assessment for learning develops learners' capacity of self-assessment, helping them to assess themselves well. Trust me that if you ask your students to assess themselves, that you are helping them to grow, being more confident and being more self-independent. And the last point is that assessment for learning should recognize the full range of achievements of all learners. So remember, some of your students might be excellent, very, very excellent out of the normal distribution. They might be at 2.5% of at the top of the normal curve. But some of your students might be quite weak, and most of them might be in the middle of the normal curve. So what we can do about this is that we have to make sure that we are trying to provide differentiated assessment to our students. If your students, for some fast students, you want to provide them with more assignments, but for weak students, you have to provide them a lot more assistance. Okay, what examples of assessment for learning in practice in real classes? Yes, questioning, the first one. It is a very quick and important way of getting students' performance. Bapak Ibu, trust me, Bapak Ibu itu sebenarnya tanpa menilai kadang sudah tahu performance siswa atau mahasiswa seberapa. Right? Misalnya Pak Muhammad Surya Rifki ini, oh saya tahu dari 40 mahasiswa yang excellent di kelas itu ini, yang benar dapat A itu ini. In the middle of the semester, you will be able to know it. But still, you need to ask your students, do you have any questions or do you have any difficulties in this assessment, or do you have any difficulties for this for our semester materials, for instance. So this kind of question help our students to get what they understand and what they do not understand. Okay, the next one is feedback. Providing feedback to our students help us to get a better performance of our students. Because by providing this kind of feedback, we are helping our students to we are helping them to show them the way. Nanti gini dan gini ya. Okay. Peer assessment and peer feedback. Okay, peer assessment. I know Bapak Ibu know a lot more than me about peer assessment and peer feedback. The thing that you need to provide is more assistance on or clear guidance on how they can provide peer assessment and this peer feedback. Provide them with rubrics. Provide them with a criteria of how they can assess their students through peer assessment and peer feedback. And then self-assessment, yes, it is quite problematic when we ask our students, kelemahanmu kira-kira di mana Mas dan Mbak? Kemudian mereka mungkin akan mengatakan, Pak, satu-satunya kelemahan saya adalah saya tidak punya kelebihan misalnya. So that is really problematic, right? We need to provide them with rubrics. We need to provide them with guidance. Kira-kira yang harus dicek itu A, B, C, D. These points, A, B, C, D, E. And you will get there. Okay? And the next one is formative use of school tests and exams. Yes, Bapak Ibu, again and again, formative and summative use of formal exams are really or strongly suggested in assessment for learning. It doesn't mean that when we are assess students for their learning that we cannot use exams or quizzes. No, we still need to use formative and also summative assessment. Even if you have a look at some references or some studies on assessment for learning, you will find that awal mula dari assessment for learning itu adalah formative test or formative assessment. Okay? The next question is, Bapak Ibu, Pak, berarti kalau kayak gitu, tugas guru itu, tugas dosen itu banyak dong? Yes. For the single assessment thing, we have like many different jobs or rules. I'm going to show you at least 6 different rules from Dennis Alonso's dissertation, 2016. He is one of my colleagues at UNSW. So he found these 6 different rules of teachers. In my study, what I found is that sebagian besar mahasiswa kami tahunya peran guru itu ya hanya asesor. They don't even know about pedagogy expert. They don't know that they are student partner. They don't know that they are motivator, teacher learner, and also stakeholder partner. But the question is, how do we find out about our roles as assessor, pedagogy expert, up to stakeholder partner? Okay, when we are talking about our role as assessor, you will find this at least 4 rules. So teachers as assessor, we need to design assessment tasks using rubrics to assess learning, consider factors that affect students' performance, and engaging in social motivation. Nah, ini Bapak Ibu sekarang kan juga sedang engaging in social motivation. Getting better understanding about assessment for learning, sharing about assessment for learning. So engaging in social motivation means kita belajar bersama untuk improving ourselves. Pedagogy expert. Cukup banyak Bapak Ibu, the roles of pedagogy expert. So we are identifying appropriate teaching methods, we are considering students' prior knowledge in lesson planning, we are considering students' current levels of abilities, considering students' interests, and so on. So, selain sebagai assessor, we also work as pedagogy experts. The next one is student partner. Remember that we are also our students partner, Bapak Ibu. Ya, kita temannya mahasiswa atau siswa untuk belajar lebih baik lagi, intinya. Okay, motivator, yes. I'm pretty sure that everyone in this, Zoom room, 70 attendees of this Zoom room are great motivators. Dari mana? You can motivate yourself to join this seminar. It means you are a good motivator, at least to yourself. And once you are good at being a good moderator for yourself, then you will be good at motivating, being a motivator for others. Okay? And then the next one is teacher learner. Yes, we are doing this one. We are being learner. I mean, although we are teachers, but we are still learning about our job. And then the last one is stakeholder partners. Okay, so stakeholder partners means that we are the friends of students' parents, kepala sekolah dan lain-lain. That is a stakeholder partner. Ada yang dulu bilang, Pak, it's too much. I cannot handle the 6 rules of being a good assessor for learning. Remember, Bapak Ibu, London wasn't built in a day. It is impossible for us to be a Superman, menguasai ke-6 kemampuan tadi in one day, in one semester, in one year. No, we are going through these steps. This year we are training ourselves to be a good assessor. Next year we are training ourselves to be a good motivator. The following year we are trying to help ourselves to be a good teacher, trainer, and so on. Okay, and there is also a tool for assessment for learning, Bapak Ibu. I'm going to send this tool to Pak Syaufi later, and you may want to measure yourself level saya di mana untuk assessment for learning. Ada ukurannya sendiri. Now there are also challenges of AFL, Bapak Ibu. Tapi mohon maaf Bapak Ibu, I already talked to Pak Syauki, karena I'm really sorry to say that salah satu anggota di jurusan kami meninggal dunia kemarin sore, dan saya pukul 10 harus memberi sambutan untuk upacara pemakaman beliau. So I'm now in front of next to rumah duka. Jadi Bapak Ibu mohon maaf nanti I'm afraid that I will just send you this this PowerPoint, and we'll now have Pak Shaufi or Pak Moderator. Can we now have a question and answer session? Yes. Yes. Okay, I think I can still in the Zoom room for another 10 minutes or 5 or 10 minutes. Silakan. If you do have any questions or something to clarify or to confirm Bapak Ibu, because this is a forum that we are learning together. I'm not a master of assessment. I'm still learning about assessment. So we are learning together here, Bapak Ibu. So please, if you have something to clarify, something to confirm, then we can share it here. Silakan. Okay, Pak Moderator.
Thank you very much, for providing interesting presentation for us now. You all enjoy this amazing presentation. Next, I would like to give participants the opportunity to ask questions in this question season. Our speaker will answer the question from the chat and also from live question. So feel free to ask. As you should type your question or raise your hand. Participant, if you have any questions, raise your hand or just type your question in the chat.
Maybe Pak Sofi wants to clarify something, Pak Sofi. Oh, Bapak Ibu, I think I found some of my students are attending this session. Oh yeah, got probably 20 students or more. Pak Sofi.
Yeah, Sofi. Okay. Please, Sofi.
Moderator, saya sedikit ada pertanyaan buat Pak Nur, Moderator. Tentang assessment di pelajaran bahasa Inggris. Nah, ketika ada dua orang siswa yang memiliki kelebihan dan kelemahan dalam menangkap atau dalam memahami sebuah materi dalam bahasa Inggris dengan berbeda culture dan sosial. Itu secara bagaimana kita melakukan assessment terhadap keduanya tersebut.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Pastor. Yes, this is a very tricky question because it happens at any time, right? Yeah, we find that some students are like afirmasi, and so on. It's pretty difficult to answer this question actually. But yeah, to my understanding, sependek pengetahuan saya, Bapak Ibu, when we find that our students have got very diverse understanding level of competence, and what we can do is provide them differentiated assessment. Jadi penilaian yang berbeda level dan lain-lain itu will help them a lot in getting better understanding about their position. So for slow learners, you may want to give them the first level of let's say you have 50 questions. For standard students, you give them 50 questions. But for fast learners, you may want to also provide some additional questions, like another 20 questions for this. Okay, Pak Sofi. So what we can do is helping them by providing them differentiated assessment. Okay, one of your juniors, Ibu Laili Amin Pajaria, under Bu Heri Ratnawati's guidance or supervision, is working on this differentiated learning, and she's building differentiated assessment as well. Okay, that's okay.
Thank you.
No worries.
Okay. Is there any question? Any other question from the participant? Okay. So we have Ibu Nur Sidamadia. Please, Ibu.
Okay, thank you for the time, moderator. Pak Nur. Okay, nice to meet you, sir. It's a very good presentation. I'm really curious about the type of assessment, sir. You said before that assessment is divided into three categories, like core learning, as learning, and off learning. Maybe can you give me the examples, sir, for each kind of types that the teacher can apply in the class? Maybe that's the next one for the example, sir. Sorry, thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Ibu Istiqomah. So yes, well, when we are talking about this kind of assessment, basically it's more into the concept itself, Ibu. When we are talking about the tools or the techniques, they might be the same, but the concept are pretty different. Okay, a multiple choice or an essay test can be both for assessment as learning or assessment of learning and also assessment of for learning. It is then the follow-up thing that we do determines the function of this assessment. Okay, so well, when we are talking about the tools, then there might be no differences among the three books. But yeah, it's about the concept itself. Our objective or purpose in doing the assessment might have something to do with this. Okay, Ibu Istiqomah?
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you, Ibu. Pak Saufi and Pak Moderator, Pak Muhammad Surya Livi, I'm afraid that it is almost the time for me to memberi sambutan untuk upacara pemberangkatan jenazah. I'm really sorry, Pak Saufi and Pak Surya, for taking too many excuses, but this is really beyond my control. So we just got the sad news yesterday, so I'm afraid that I have to leave the Zoom room now. Again and again, thank you to the organizing committee for the lovely invitation and lovely opportunity to have this sharing session with Bapak Ibu. 2 thumbs up for Bapak Ibu because I'm pretty sure that you are very, very great assessors of learning.
Semoga bermanfaat.